Hello, friends. Welcome to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host, Julie Jancis. Today, we're going to have on a gentleman named Paul Zavagno. He is a facilitator of Byron Katie's work. He's worked with her. He's worked with people in her workshops, helping the people who are coming to Byron Katie's workshops. And I'm just so excited to have him on the podcast, because all of Byron Katie's work is relevant to each and every human being. What Byron Katie does is she really talks about the stories that we tell ourselves within our own mind. When you really get down to it, why don't you like this person or that person? Or why do you feel closer to this person and more distance from that person? We tend to, when you drill it down, have beliefs. Maybe it's he, she, they don't care about me. We have other beliefs like other people are happier than I am. We have beliefs like I'm different from others. I'm not as good as they are. Other people are smarter than I am. We have belief systems that say I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm not good at this. Or this is too hard. But what the work of Byron Katie does is help us to see that most of the thoughts that we think aren't truth. The egoic mind would love for us to think they're true, and when we do not control our own minds, the mind is controlling us by doing just that, by telling us that these thoughts are true. And it is that belief system, belief in those thoughts within our minds, that creates all of the suffering we go through. Today, we're talking to Paul in order to understand the work of Byron Katie, to understand the questions that she uses to help people work through those thoughts, those belief systems within themselves, in order to come into and live your life from more peace, more love, more joy. I also wanted to let you know that I know that the recordings and the interviews haven't been as great, so I'm going back to Zoom, which I think is a little bit better. If any of you are sensitive to sound, if you can tell me if this interview with Paul sounds better than the past couple of interviews, I'd be really interested to get your feedback and to know if it's sounding better to you, because it's sounding better to me. Friends, while you're listening to this, don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate this podcast, or go on over to social media and check us out at Angel Podcast. That's the @ Angel Podcast. We've got a Facebook page and Instagram page where we put up daily angel messages. We also have the Facebook group Angels and Awakening Podcast Tribe. I do post weekly videos over there, talking about different subjects, kind of diving deeper into some things, maybe even talking about some subjects that I'm not sure everybody's ready for over here. So if you want more of this podcast, definitely go on over to Facebook and join the group Angels and Awakening Podcast Tribe. We've got an angel school coming up on November 16th and 17th if you want details about that. Or if you'd like to book a session with me, because you know that's how I keep this podcast going, hop on over to my website, www.jancis.com. That's my last name.com. Okay, so here is the interview. Hello, everyone. I am so excited because today we are here with Paul Zavagno. He is a Byron Katie facilitator. He's also a teacher turned principal, and I'm sure you've dealt with people going into the mind as a principal, so many different dramatic situations. We are talking today about the work. Byron Katie talks about the mind and how if we don't learn how to control the mind, it will control us. And what I find so often with my clients in spiritual awakening is that we're learning that before we awaken, we're almost in this dream-like state where we almost don't even realize the truth of what's happening in our own lives. So today, Paul is on the show. Paul, if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then I'm so excited for our listeners to get to dive in, because this is really great information that every single person can use in their life.
Sure. Well, as you said, I had a career as a teacher. I was an elementary school teacher for a number of years, and then I became a principal, and I did that for 25 years. And really, that was my calling for most of my career. Toward the end of my career as an administrator, I started to encounter other difficulties in my life, not necessarily professionally, but my marriage was falling apart. I was having difficulty with my kids. I was also anticipating retirement and what that would mean in terms of, like, who would I be if I wasn't a principal anymore, after really identifying as that person, that guy. And so while my life looked okay on the outside, inside it was falling apart. It was crumbling. And I remember I reached out to a friend, a buddy of mine who had been a principal. He had retired the year before. And I figured, I'm going to go have lunch with him and he's going to help me with this transition. So I had lunch with him, and I basically spent the lunch complaining about my life and everything that was going wrong. And he said, I've got a book for you that I would recommend. And he gave me the author and the title of a book. I wrote it down dutifully. On the way home from lunch, I stopped in the library in my town in Deerfield, and I looked up the book, and I went to the shelf and I found the book. And next to the book that he recommended, I found Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is.
Oh,
It wasn't the book he recommended, but it was right next to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I checked both books out, and I looked at Katie, and I looked at the picture of her, and the book is called Loving What Is. And I thought to myself, how can I love what is when my whole life is falling apart? Right. There's nothing to love in my life. But I started reading her book, and I found that I was just drawn to it immediately. Mm-hmm. And I don't even remember what the other book is that he recommended. And that became a metaphor for me for the work, because in our lives, whenever we're struggling, whenever we're having difficulty, we tend to look outside of ourselves for the answer. We look to change her, change him, change it, change some circumstances, and then we'll be okay. Then we'll be peaceful. Then we'll be enlightened. Whatever we're seeking, we want those circumstances to change. And that was, for me, like the other book. I was searching there. The answer was right next to what I was searching for. The answer is inside.
Yeah.
And it isn't to change them, to change it. It's to look at what I'm believing, look at what's happening, as you said, in my mind. A lot of that suffering, in fact, Katie says only 100% of the suffering we experience is caused by believing what we're thinking.
Right.
So when I started to do the work myself on my kids, my wife, my job, my retirement, my dad, who was going through health challenges at the time, what I discovered in the work is that the search outward gave me the focus, so I could judge my wife, I could judge my kids, I could judge my dad, I could judge my job, and put that down on paper. That helped me identify what I was believing.
Yeah, because with Byron Katie's,
Yeah.
And so Byron Katie, she has these 4 questions that you go through to answer, just for people who are listening who aren't aware. And what she says is that you go through, you answer these questions, and then you challenge them. So we establish that we've got beliefs, and we're figuring out what those beliefs are, and then questioning them.
Yeah, perfect. A perfect way to describe it. So really the work is both, the first part of it is identifying what we're believing. And we look at our judgments of situations to do that. There are various techniques. But then the second thing we do is question those beliefs that we've identified. And that is what most people know of the work. Mm-hmm. It's the 4 questions. Is it true? So you identified a belief. She doesn't care about me.
Right.
That's a belief that I had, and I've had, and maybe a lot of people have had about someone in their life, that they don't care about them. So she doesn't care about me. And then I take it to the questions. Question number 1, is it true? And that's simply a yes or a no. And I just take a look. In that situation I'm in, she doesn't care about me. Is that true? And I'm looking inside, and it looks like yes, she doesn't care about me. So my response is yes. And then I go to question 2. Can I absolutely know that it's true? It's a similar question, but it asks me to go a little deeper. Look again. Can I absolutely know that she doesn't care about me? And again, I look inside. What's my experience of this? And I can see, I can't really know that for sure in this situation. I think she doesn't care about me, but I really don't know what's going on in her mind. So my answer is no. Then, very important question 3, how do I react? What happens to me when I believe that thought? So I notice I get angry at her. I feel a tension in my stomach. My breath is short. I feel hurt. I start to see images of all the other times she didn't care about me. I start to see a future of our relationship falling apart.
And those aren't real. When we're creating these scenarios within our mind, it's not something that is even truth. But when the egoic mind comes in this way and it starts playing these pictures of the past and what happened and what he's going to do in the future, she's going to do in the future, it creates this whole dreamlike world that is taking us deeper into our thoughts, deeper into our feelings, creating in what Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body. So you feel within your body. And most of us, we're spending all of our time, right? Because you're doing the work through this Angels and Awakening podcast. You're getting into that high vibration. But there are times where something happens and it pulls you in to this very low vibration where you feel hurt feelings within your heart, to the point sometimes where you can't shake that vibration, right? Your head is ruminating on those thoughts. And that's a hard place to be.
It is an absolutely hard place to be. And the tendency is for those thoughts and images to be self-reinforcing. Like you just get deeper and deeper into the pain and the suffering. And then you come up with more stories about what's wrong with you and them. And so you go in the work, you really go into that in question 3 and really try to witness what happens to you. Then you move to question 4, which is, who would you be without that thought? So if you weren't having the thought, she doesn't care about me, who would you actually be? And that sort of wakes you out of that dream world and lets you take a good look at what is actually happening in your life in that moment. You might actually just be sitting on your couch, right, having a cup of tea, and you're fine, you're warm, you just had a meal, everything's really actually okay, except for what's going on in your head when you believe the story. Right. Who would I be without this story of her not caring? I'm comfortable, I'm at peace. And what Katie would say, what I would subscribe to, is that is our natural state. Mm-hmm. That is what is always available
Yes.
when we're not unaware of it because of the story that we're telling ourselves and believing.
Right. And the way that my listeners might resonate with this too is we talk a lot about the soul, right? And the soul being the true essence, the true vibration of what we are. And when we get down to it, our true soul self is always at peace, at ease. And there's just really these overlapping vibrations here on earth because it's a physical realm that we're coming into and how we interact with those vibrations. I got to tell you, so early on in my spiritual awakening, I encountered this very clearly, where you get to a point in your spiritual awakening where you can see the distinction between the watcher of the thoughts and the thoughts floating by, right? So my husband and I are on the couch one night. This is years ago, but he's on one side of the L couch. I'm on the other side. We're watching a movie. It's Friday night. We've both had a long week. And I start thinking, why isn't he over here next to me? Why is he on the opposite side of the couch? Doesn't he know that I need love? I need affection. I need someone to cuddle. So now I'm watching this happen and play out in my mind. And now I'm not even watching the movie because here my mind is ruminating on my frustration with the situation, my frustration with him. And I just allowed it to play out because Spirit was telling me, just watch the cycle of how this progresses for you. So I ended up, I wasn't trying to stop the feelings. I was just trying to be with them to understand the process. So I watched it. I went to bed angry. I woke up angry. He's in the kitchen in the morning. He's making his coffee. And I didn't even say anything. I just looked at him and he goes, "What's wrong?" And I go, "Nothing." Nothing. You should know. You should know what's wrong. And I let it play out, and those feelings ended up sticking with me for about 2 weeks, just from that one night. And when I went back to do the work on it, when I went back to do the work on it, what I found was that I had needs in my life. I had feelings that I was not communicating to him. So when I went into my feelings just that night on the couch, went back in meditation, I felt lonely. I was tired, and I felt like I just needed somebody to love, hug, and touch me. And did I communicate that to him? No. If I had asked him to come over and cuddle with me, spoon me, he would have been right there. But I was not being responsible for my own actions, for myself, for my thoughts. I wasn't being self-aware. I was in a state of blame, which is where I think we all come from most of the time, right? Of we don't want to feel this ourselves, so we just project these things onto other people.
Yeah, that is the mechanism that of how the mind works. That we start to feel some sense of dissatisfaction, dis-ease, if you will. The way I think about it is we've lost awareness of our natural state of peace. Mm-hmm. And we don't like that. Right. And so we look for something to name as the cause of it. And in this case, it's your husband sitting on the other end of the couch that you name. And in the case I'm naming her. It's her fault. She doesn't care about me. So we're assigning the power and the blame for this state to someone or something else. Mm-hmm. That judgment is what we take to the work in question, because it's that is actually the cause of our suffering, not what they're doing. Right? He's just sitting on the couch. He's not doing anything.
So is the first real belief to overcome in doing the work is that controlling other people will get us what we want. I think that that's the belief that most of us have, that if we can control other people, if we can get them to do what we want them to do, then we end our own suffering. So we keep working towards that, but that's just not possible.
It never works. may satisfy temporarily if we manipulate somebody into giving us what we want, but it doesn't last. It's not satisfying beyond a moment or two, and then we're wanting something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so you used a word a moment ago, like taking responsibility. That's what's happening with the work. I take responsibility for my thoughts, my judgments, and I take responsibility for questioning them. Because here, I'm not going to stop the thought from coming. It's going to come up. That's what minds do.
Right.
In this human incarnation that we're in, hearts beat blood, lungs breathe air, minds think thoughts. And some of those thoughts aren't true.
Yeah, and most of them aren't true.
most of them aren't. And so we have a choice when that thought occurs to us. We can either believe it and just live our life out of that thought, and that leads to, what you're earlier calling this dream state, this trance, if you will, where we think it's their fault, they're causing me to suffer. It's causing me to suffer, because sometimes it's not a person.
Right.
It's a situation or a thing. And it could be the weather. I don't like the weather. I was planning on having a picnic and it's raining. So
right.
It's the weather's fault,
right.
and I blame the weather. Whatever it is, I'm going to look at that judgment and I'm going to decide, okay, instead of just automatically believing it and living out of it, I'm going to question it. Now, what happens for most of us is the way we notice that we're doing this is an emotional signal. So we may not notice we're believing something at first, but we notice we're upset. We notice we're angry. We notice we're worried or depressed or resentful. Those emotions are like a little alarm clock to wake us up to the fact that we're believing something. So when I get upset, it's time to take a look at, what do I think is happening that's upsetting me? What do I think is other than it should be? Right. I have an idea of how the day should go, how he should treat me. It could be as simple as somebody didn't text me back.
Yeah, I got a question for you here. So because some of that comes down to expectations too. Like, we have different expectations. Are expectations, in your opinion, the same as beliefs?
Very similar, yes. Yes. Okay. And an expectation is a judgment about how things should be.
Okay.
So what typically happens is, we have the way things are. I'm using my hands here to show that's the way things are, right?
Right.
And then we have how we want them to be, how we expect them to be, how we think they should be.
Yeah.
And there's a gap between those things.
Because our expectations are so much higher than where reality typically is.
Typically, yeah. Typically, they're different.
Yeah.
If they match, there's no suffering.
Right.
Like, things are exactly the way I expect them to be, then we're happy.
Mm-hmm.
When they're not the same, we're not happy. We're upset in some way, maybe depressed, maybe angry, maybe worried, anxious, whatever the emotion is, there's some negative emotion associated with the gap. Mm-hmm. Now, what the world teaches us is, the way to fix this is change them.
Right.
Make them meet your expectations, and then there won't be a gap and you'll be okay.
Yes.
But it doesn't work, right? I mean,
no. Well, I'm laughing about this because right before I came on to record this with you, I went downstairs to make myself some lunch, and I'm playing with my two dogs. I've got two dogs, a male dog and a female dog. And I was looking at them, and it dawned on me that I have done this with my dogs. My dog Fluff, the little boy dog, he has snapped at me a couple of times. And so I've made him out to be the bad dog. inside my head. And I give Lulu all my love and attention because she doesn't do that. She's sweet. She cuddles. And even that's not true. She snapped at me a couple of times, but she'll just come up on my lap and she just wants love and attention. And I was sitting here before our call thinking, I have a belief that one dog is good and one dog is bad. And how was that feel to my poor boy doggy that he doesn't get as much love or attention from me than the other one? Then I started to feel so much in my heart chakra, poor for Fluff. But we do this with everything, big and little.
Well, dogs are great teachers because they don't hold those resentments often. They're like right back, giving us attention and love and being right in the moment. They're great teachers from that perspective. Mm-hmm. People have a harder time with that. So, those expectations we have, what we do in the work is, instead of trying to change them, let's investigate this expectation. So let me give you an example. We're taught from a very early age that you're supposed to tell the truth. And people are supposed to tell the truth. So we go around with this expectation that people are supposed to tell the truth. But what do people actually do? What's the reality of people on this planet? Do they tell the truth all the time?
No.
They tell the truth sometimes, and they don't tell the truth sometimes. What's our own reality? Look at your own life and your own situation. Do you always tell the truth? No. Sometimes you lie. Sometimes you bend the truth a little bit to be kind or whatever. But we have reasons that we don't tell the truth, but we don't always tell the truth. So the reality is it's really mixed. Sometimes we tell the truth, sometimes we don't. That's true for most people on this planet. That's what human beings do. That's what happens. But we walk around with this. Everybody's supposed to tell the truth all the time. And then anytime somebody lies, we're suffering.
Right.
Not just with the result of the lies, which there may be a real impact if somebody's lying to us. I'm not dismissing that. But there's an additional level of suffering when we think they should be telling the truth and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that my expectation is, or my belief is, they should be telling the truth. So I would write that down and then I would question it. They should be telling the truth. Is it true? Can I absolutely know they should be telling the truth? What happens to me when I believe that? Right. Anger, resentment, blame, frustration, trying to teach them to be a better person and to tell the truth, trying to prove that I'm right. All that stuff happens. Moral superiority.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Well, we make good guys and bad guys out of our stories. We go to other people to validate us, to get confirmation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We go, and then who would I be without that belief? Well, in that situation, I might still notice that the person is lying.
Right.
So the question isn't who would I be if they were not lying. The question is, who would I be if I didn't believe they should be telling the truth when they're lying? Well, I would notice they're lying, and I would actually be more at peace with their lying. I still might need to address it. I still might need to say, hey, I notice you're telling me something that doesn't seem to match what I know. Yeah. Tell me a little more about that. What's going on for you over there?
Right.
And I'm more connected actually to the person, where with the belief, I'm separate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now the work has this other component to it, which is called the turnarounds.
Yes.
And the turnarounds are very powerful. It's a way of looking at opposites to the original thought. So if my thought is they should be telling me the truth, I'm going to look at first, on a first turnaround is the turnaround to the self. I should be telling me the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's getting me back in touch with who I really am. Right? If I'm really telling me my own truth, now I'm back in touch with my natural wisdom, my peaceful state. And if I can really tell myself the truth about that, I'm less disturbed by whatever they're doing because I'm in touch with that. And I look at a turnaround to the other. I should be telling him the truth. Where am I in this situation not telling him the truth? And it might vary, but there might actually be ways I'm not being totally upfront with him about what's going on.
Yeah.
Maybe I misled him. Maybe I'm just not sharing my expectations that he should be telling the truth 100% of the time.
Yeah. I got this on a much deeper level when you and I talked last week. And I don't want to go into the full story of everything. I'm just going to kind of share part of it. But you've been somebody on my list who I've wanted to interview on this podcast for about the last 6 months. And I like my listeners to know that no person, even if you've gone through a spiritual awakening, is perfect, right? That we all are continually going through this because the egoic mind doesn't stop. It's going to be with us our entire life. You can't turn it off. The only way that we can learn to live with it is to learn how to control it more, to question our belief systems. So, and I really do try and live as much of my life as I can in what I call high vibration. You could call it presence, being in the now. But I found myself going through a situation over the last 6 months where my husband and I are redoing our will and trust. And it wasn't actually one person. It was actually 3 people who we went to and we said, you know, we've thought about this a lot, you know, one after one after one. We've really thought about this a lot. And if something were to happen to Blake and I, we would be wanting you to be the one to raise our child. And each of these 3 people said no. And these are the people that we love most in this world, that we just know would be such a good fit for her. And it was absolutely devastating. I mean, to go through it time and time again. And I got to the point where I felt like I'm not connected to my family. You know, these different thoughts were going through my head of they don't love me how I love them. I would do anything for them. Look at all that I have done for these people in their lives, the way that I have sacrificed to be there for them. And yet I'm asking them to be my memories when I am gone, to raise my child in a way that they would get to know me, because they're the people here on earth that know me the best. And you can't do that for me in a time of crisis in my life. What happened energetically was you could have put planets between the energy of me and these people. I felt so much distance. My heart was just in so much pain, and it was keeping me up at night. My thoughts were just spinning in circles. They don't love me. They don't love me. They don't love me. And it made me cry, you know, and I got to the point where spirit, I was like, what do I do to shake this vibration? I was watching different YouTube videos and spirit said, just call Paul. We don't know each other. I knew of you, but they were like, just call Paul. And so I did, and you walked me through it that day, and I turned it around, those questions around. I forget exactly. They don't love me. I don't love me. They're not there for me. I'm not being there for myself. And what we got to the point of it through working together for a while was I can be in my box of being hurt, that that this just decision based on their part hurts my feelings. But they can also stand in their box and say, this isn't good for my life right now. I don't know how I would handle an 8-year-old girl that I've never been a parent before. I don't know how I would do that in my life. And that can be true for them. And they can know that it's going to hurt my feelings and make that decision for them because it's best for them in their life. And it doesn't mean that they don't love me. Doesn't mean that we're not close. It just means that in their life right now, that's not what's best for them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a such a heartfelt example, Julie, of how the reaction takes over, the story of them, and how they're not caring about you. And if we really step back from the situation a moment, we can understand that we really don't know what the best thing is for your daughter.
Right.
Like if you and Blake were to pass on, and like, we don't really know. We have an idea. We have a thought. Oh, it's this person. That's the person I'm closest to. And so we have that expectation. We have that belief, and we put that on them. But, you know, the reality is they may not be the best person. And
True.
so their no is actually a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't want someone taking care of your daughter when you're gone who doesn't want to do it.
Right.
That would not be a good thing.
Right.
You want someone who would love this job. Right? I can't wait to do this, right? That's how you want your daughter to be cherished by someone like you do.
Absolutely.
And you just haven't found them yet. So you're asking people. But you were courageous enough to look at what you were believing and open enough to question it, and to find your own truth, which is you don't know. Right.
And how I've seen this evolve in my life, for those listening, because I do think it's an evolutionary process. And what I found at the beginning was years ago when this first started to happen and I became aware of the thoughts. The other thing that I realized was that somewhere along the way, between elementary school and being 33 years old when my spiritual awakening first occurred, I stopped feeling my feelings. I stopped feeling what was going on in my body, thinking, understanding my thoughts, because it was too painful. And so when you kind of come into this, there's a couple of steps you have to go through. First, just being aware of what you're thinking. Sometimes, though, the first step is actually feeling what you're feeling, because I've noticed a feeling can come first. And I am so tapped in now to my vibrations that I'll go, that's not typical. That's not a high vibration. What is that? You can tie it to a thought and see that this is what it's connected to and go from there.
Yeah, very much so. And I what I love about the work is that in the first part of it, you're identifying what it is you're believing. And when you get to question 3, after you've already asked, is it true? Can you know if it's true? When you're getting to question 3, you're really getting in touch with all of those feelings. Like, how do I react when I believe this? And you see not just the emotional feelings, but the physical feelings. I mean, there are, diseases that manifest. There are addictions that manifest from our beliefs. And we take a look at all those. And then we take a look at our actions. Like, how am I treating them? How am I treating others in my life? The disconnect you gave as an example when you were sitting on the couch and having the thought about your husband should be coming over, how you stopped seeing the movie. That's one of the things that happens. We stop being present in our life. We stop experiencing what's going on right in front of us. And we're more tuned into this crazy world that's happening in our brain of images and thoughts and stories about what they're doing to us. And that's where we're living.
Right.
So there's a concept in the work that I think is very helpful that I'll share with your listeners. It's the idea of 3 kinds of business, that there are only 3 kinds of business that happen in the world. There's my business, which is the things I'm thinking, I'm feeling, I'm believing, I'm doing or saying. They're the things I'm responsible for. There's your business, which are the things you're thinking, you're believing, you're doing and saying, the things you're responsible for. And then there's God's business or divine business. There are things that are beyond either one of us, like what the weather is, whether there's a war or not, how many people are hungry, and things like that are beyond my responsibility or your responsibility. the key is staying in your own business.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're suffering, a short question to ask ourselves, if we don't have time to pull out a worksheet and write down what we're thinking and do all the questions and stuff, is just to ask the simple question, whose business am I in?
Yeah.
Like often, in the example you gave where you asked someone to care for your daughter after you're gone,
Mm-hmm.
you're asking, that's your business, right? That's something you're responsible for.
Right.
So that part is fine. You're staying in your business. That's your authentic responsibility. I want to be responsible for my daughter. I want to make sure that she's cared for after I pass on. And so I'm going to ask this person, will you take care of my daughter? Most of us are fine with that. The rub comes when we get to their answer. Whose business is it what they answer?
Mm-hmm.
It's theirs, right? But
True.
we often want to stay in ours to ask and then go into theirs for the answer, right? We want to tell them how to answer.
Yes.
And now, here, check this out energetically and emotionally, psychologically. When I go over into their life to tell them how to answer that question, who's left in my life? No one.
Right.
I'm over there now,
Right.
living their life for them. Now, they're actually over there too, living their life for themselves very nicely, by the way, just saying, no, thank you. Thank you for asking, but no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, we're over there telling them, no, say yes, say yes. That leaves no one at home with us.
Right.
That is the pain we experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's not being home, not being in our own business. And then we want to blame that pain on somebody, so let's blame it on them, because that's where we're at anyway.
So I'm just thinking about this too, because that's where the turnarounds come in helpful. Because if you're not in your box and if you're not taking care of you, then, you know, when you really ask those questions or you see those beliefs, she doesn't care about me. I don't care about me.
Right.
He's not there for me. I'm not there for me.
And also, I'm not there for her.
Right.
I don't care about her. Like, notice when you really get honest and still, when that person that you asked to take care of your daughter when you pass said no, you don't care about them and their life and whether it's a good thing for them. Right then, all you want is what matters to you. You don't care about them.
Absolutely.
You know? And so that turnaround points us to that. Here's the other thing that it helps with. When I really get, I don't care about me, and I really see in that situation how hard it is to care for myself, how easy it is to forget to do that, how hard it is to care for them, how easy it is to forget to do that, I have a whole lot more compassion for them not caring, because I'm expecting them to do what I can't do.
Right. It's so hard though in the moment. In the moment when you're in that physical pain. So I want to refer people, because there's worksheets that Byron Katie has for free on her website. And I love that she makes so much of this accessible. She's got so many YouTube videos where you can pretty much look up Byron Katie in any subject, mother-in-law, sister, anybody. And they've got videos up already where they're working through this. But if you wanted to work through your own beliefs, there's sheets she's got for free on the website.
Yeah, there's two that I would point to that are really, really useful. One is called the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And this is a way of identifying beliefs we have. So if we're upset with someone, if we haven't forgiven someone, we're worried about someone, whatever it is, print out one of these worksheets, go to thework.com, that's her website. You can look up resources. You can find all these worksheets there. They're available as an online tool. They're also available, you can print out a PDF, print out as many as you want. It explains on the website too exactly how to fill it out. When you fill out a judge your neighbor worksheet, what you're essentially doing is identifying a whole set of beliefs you have about a person in a given situation. You might identify 10, 20 beliefs. That's one worksheet that really helps with, what is this that I'm believing? What is the story I'm carrying around that's causing my suffering? It's really hard to see that, most of us, when we're in the middle of it.
Right.
But the worksheet helps us slow down, put the thoughts on paper, and then we can take a look at them.
Right.
That's where the next worksheet comes in. The next worksheet is called a one belief at a time worksheet. And that's where we do the questioning. So the 4 questions and the turnarounds that we've talked about here today are all on that worksheet. You take one belief at a time. She doesn't care about me. You write it on the one belief at a time worksheet, and then there's the question, is it true? And there's a little line for you to write yes or no. Then the next question, can you absolutely know that it's true? And a little line for you to write yes or no. And then how do you react? And there are even sub-question prompts like, what are you feeling in your body? What images occur? How do you treat them? How are you feeling emotionally? What addictions come up? You don't have to answer all those questions, but they're prompts to get you to look at the array of things that happen when you're believing that thought. Then question 4, who would I be without it? And you look at that. What would it be like? What would that same situation be like if I wasn't believing the story about they don't care about me?
Right.
And then the place for the turnarounds. I don't care about me. I don't care about them. They do care about me. And then we look for genuine, specific examples of how that turnaround, that opposite, might be as true or truer than the original thought. Mm-hmm. And over time, what we come to experience is, a lot of these thoughts, they just aren't that true.
Right.
And so it loosens up our attachment to these thoughts. Thoughts are still going to occur. We're still going to have emotional reactions to things. But the more we do the work, the more we answer the questions, the more we're getting in touch with that true nature inside, the more we start to trust that actually when I get triggered, when I get upset, that's actually for me. That's my path to peace. Mm-hmm. Because what's stopping me from being in peace is that upset. So I need to find it and then clear it up, which is what the questions and the turnarounds do. So now I have more access to peace. Right. You can't really get this wrong. You're either peaceful or you're not. If you're peaceful, go ahead and be peaceful. It's great. If you're not, take out a worksheet. What do you think is getting in your way? Oh, it's her. Oh, it's him. It's it. Now I know what's blocking me from peace, and I can examine that and start to question it. And if I do that frequently, often enough, now I'm returning to peace.
Mm-hmm. How do you use this in your life? Because every single person has the egoic mind constantly there on, and we're not going to get rid of it within our lifetime. So do you I look at therapy as, getting my oil changed on my car. I keep a standard appointment because you're constantly working through different stuff, even if you don't feel like stuff is there. I've never run out of things to talk about. Do you kind of check in with yourself weekly to see where you're at and do a worksheet weekly?
I try to stay in the work in one way or another, and I do that in a variety of ways. One way that I do it is doing my own worksheets, and life is generous enough that it will bring me situations and people that will give me the opportunity to be upset again.
I love that description.
So it's like, how exciting I got upset. Now, that's what's exciting about that is I now know, because I've been doing this long enough, that when I get upset, there's a gift in that for me. I don't see it at the time. That's why I'm upset. But I know and I trust that if I actually examine what I think is wrong, I will get a gift for me. That's helpful for me, not just in clearing up that situation, but it's part of my path, if you will. So now, first of all, it doesn't happen as frequently, and it tends to not be as intense as it used to be, and it doesn't last as long because I recover more quickly, but that's just practice. Different people have different personalities. So some people prefer to take a very disciplined approach. There's an idea in the work called doing the work for breakfast, where you just, on a daily basis, you're doing some kind of work. You may be, day one, writing a judge your neighbor worksheet, and then you have identified 10 or 15 beliefs on that. And then every day subsequent to that, you take one of those beliefs and you just work it, just to stay in practice. And some people like to do that. Other people prefer, I don't want to do the work until I'm upset. And that's sort of a personality type. I also find that I am helped because I'm working with other people. So as I facilitate people, I'm also doing my work. So when you're working on your situation with, they don't care about me, and in your situation, it's about asking someone to take care of your daughter. Internally, I'm working on someone doesn't care about me because there are no new thoughts here. Do you get that you didn't make up the thought, they don't care about me? You didn't invent it. You borrowed it.
Right.
And yes. Most other people on the planet have had that thought at some time or another, and me too. So when you're working on that, I'm touching that work in myself. And the world also has a perfect way of bringing me people that want to work on issues that are my issues. I can't tell you how that happens exactly, but it tends to happen.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever get it too? I get it often where spirit will have me go through something, a day, a week, a month, 6 months in advance of a wave of people coming to me for that exact same thing. So I really trust in the process now of knowing that my angels, my guides, my loved ones are always working with me, and they're bringing me things in order for me to understand. Now, I think that that's really the good key for a spiritual healer that you want to work with too, is are they sweeping all of their stuff under the rug and trying to present like this perfectionism, or are they really being honest with you? Because if you're being honest, there's always something going on in everyone's life.
Yeah, I kid people that, since I'm still here, I must still have stuff to work on.
Yeah.
When I get to the place where I no longer have stuff to work on, you'll call my number or look for me on Skype, and I won't be here anymore. I'm done.
Yeah. You want to hear a cool story? So the people that I was upset with over the will and the trust, well, two things actually happened. One was the first kind of evolution of that I went into was kind of creating boundaries with those people. And I was so upset at the beginning that I was like, I can't even stomach talking to them right now. So I blocked them. I blocked them on all social media. I blocked them on my phone. And when we went to lunch, it ended up coming out. And that's really where I connected with their humanity of how much that hurt them. Because to them, that was a trigger where they had been abandoned in the past in a similar way. And that was a trigger, as much a trigger for them as what they did was a trigger for me. So we that's where the conversation really shifted, was seeing how much I had hurt them in that process too. But at the end of the lunch, the receipt came, and I get number signs all the time. And I had felt the presence of my dad there over the last couple of months. He was really strongly working through the situation with me. And the receipt came and it was 33.33 on the dot. That was the amount. So I'm driving home and my dad goes, calculate the numbers in my birthday. And they add to 33.
Wow.
I know. Yeah.
There's a saying that Katie uses that everything that happens is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've found in my own work is the reality of that no matter how difficult, no matter how painful a situation is, it's really ultimately there serving me. It's for my good and for my best. And the challenge is discovering that sometimes, being aware of what that gift is. And sometimes what I say to people is sometimes the gift comes in wrapping paper that we don't like. So we reject the gift. It's like, you will, I will read a book, I will meditate, I will go to a seminar to find the truth that I shouldn't take things personally.
Mm-hmm.
And then there'll be somebody in my life that is being very critical of me. And they're also giving me that gift, that teaching, don't take things personally. But I don't like the way they're doing it.
Yeah.
I would prefer to get that through, an easy, gentle way, like reading a nice book and having this blissful meditation and awareness. But really, they're doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And the people in our lives, the ones we live with, the ones we work with, our parents, our children, our partners, they're our gurus. They're the ones bringing us the truths that we need. Sometimes they don't do it in such a pleasant way to us,
right?
We think. So we take what we think is wrong and write it down. As we question it, as we turn it around, that's where we see the gifts. That's where we see, oh, got it.
Do you think that that's the point of life? Do you think that that's why we're here as souls? Is to go through all of that this is school for us?
It's helpful for me to think about it that way. And it's also helpful for me to think about it in terms of what I can do for others. Like, regardless of what's happening, what can I bring to this experience? Mm-hmm. What can I give in this experience? So it's not just about me figuring it out and being wiser than I was, or mm-hmm. more peaceful than I was, but where can I give that back? Where can mm-hmm. I reach out a hand that can help someone? Because in many ways, we're all in the same boat. We're all doing the same work. It looks different. Some people's problems, so to speak, look humongous compared to ours. Others look minor compared to ours. But this idea of waking up to our true nature is what we're all here doing. Mm-hmm. And so when I wake up to my true nature, that shows other people how to do it. And when I can assist with the questions or with an experience that might help somebody get in touch with their true nature, then I'm helping in that way as well.
Yeah. And I think the beauty in this, and I hope you don't mind if I'm asking this question, because I saw it in my own life that when I started to go through this spiritual awakening, you started the podcast saying that everything was falling apart, right? In every different area. And I've been in that same place before. And it's amazing that when you do this work, it puts it back together in a way that is more beautiful than you could have ever even fathomed, right? So were you able to do this work to better your relationship with your wife, to better your relationship with your children?
I have a great relationship with my wife now. We're divorced, but we have a great relationship. We had a very peaceful divorce. We decided, we had a good relationship for almost 30 years, and it was time to move on. Mm-hmm. And we did that in a very amicable way, with love and with peace and with generosity and with thank you for what you've been to me and what I've been to you, and it's time to move on.
I love that, because that's actually where my egoic mind has gotten so stuck in the past when listening to Byron, Katie, is you start to think about, well, where are there really boundaries? When is something truth for us that maybe this person isn't good for us in our lives? And it doesn't have to be, this horrible drama to part ways. Because there are some people that you work with who have violent husbands, or there are some people who have an alcoholic spouse, and it's not appropriate to allow that person to drive with your kids, or, there are different situations that people can be in where you do have to say no, right? Or create boundaries.
Absolutely. And so you're not going to leave yourself in harm's way, leave your kids in harm's way, do things that are self-destructive, abusive, put up with abuse. But if you're in an abusive relationship, the work is going to help you to be clear about what's going on there. What often happens in an abusive relationship is the story that we have about the other person, but we're also addicted to that, and we can't get out of it. So the work isn't going to tell you whether to stay or go, but it is going to help you do that peacefully. And I mean internally peacefully. Like there's a way to leave an abusive relationship with peace in your heart. Mm-hmm. There's a way to stay in an abusive relationship with peace in your heart. There's a way to leave with resentment, and there's a way to stay with resentment. The work is about finding the peace, not whether you're going to go or not.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. And I think, all right, so I'm just going to pull this one in here and just kind of get your take on it, because I've heard Byron and Katie say we're all innocent. The only thing we're guilty of is believing our thoughts. And the only other place where that comes in, and I'm like, but what about the Holocaust, right? Not so innocent there. What about violent acts? Not so innocent there. I guess deeper into meditation, if you're putting yourself in the mind of the person who is committing those acts, they're coming from such a limited point of view, a destructive thought pattern, that they can't themselves see any other way out.
Yeah,
so it's hard, right? It's hard for the ego.
Well, somebody who is using violence to get their way, who is killing someone, for example, it's important to lock that person up. And I've heard Katie say this, I want to lock that person up because I don't want to let them do that to themselves again. Mm. That is a violent way to live. Mm-hmm. And what you pointed out is likely the case. Like, if we could really slow down and completely get in touch with what was happening inside that person when they committed murder, they are believing that is the solution. They're believing something about the other person, about what resources they have, what options they have, where that seems like the only way out. And it's self-destructive and destructive for another life. So we want to we need to limit that person from being able to do that. We need to stop that if we can. And we would do that. We would, use the police, arrest the person, try the person, put them in jail, because they're not doing something that's acceptable to them or to anyone in society. But if we really look at it, where do we do that? We might not actually commit murder, but we certainly have murderous thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we can work on.
Right.
I can identify that this comes up all the time, like right now in the political atmosphere that we're in this country.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of judgments just flying around about everybody and everything.
Right.
And how do we approach that? How do we see that from the perspective of this work that we're doing? We look at politicians and leaders and those people, and we identify our beliefs about them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's being an idiot. I'm probably not the only one that's had that thought, but is that true? He's being an idiot in that situation. Yes or no? Can I really know that he's being an idiot? How do I react? What happens to me over here in my life watching TV when I believe he's being an idiot?
Mm-hmm.
And the anger and the foment and the going on Facebook and making comments and yelling and doing all of that stuff. And then who would I be without that thought? I might be more peaceful on my couch watching TV.
Mm-hmm.
I still might need to go vote.
Mm-hmm.
I still might need to go help register other people to vote or donate to a campaign or write to my congressman or do something that's clear and helpful. But I could do that from a place of peace. Turn the thought around. He's being an idiot. I'm being an idiot to me. Mm-hmm. When I'm thinking his behavior is impacting my peace.
That's so true. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because one of the things that I've struggled with too is there's so many people in the spiritual community who kind of make things out to be like, let it go, let it go, let it go. And in one way we can let things go by doing the work and coming to a different belief set, but it doesn't take away action. And that we do, and we need action to be able to change things in this world, to serve others in this world.
Absolutely. But we want that action to be coming out of peace and coming out of clarity. Mm-hmm. And my mind is confused and judgmental and angry and upset. I'm not clear.
Right.
And I'm not coming out of peace. And I'm going to tend to make mistakes in what I do. Right. I'm not going to have the clear, effective means of being really helpful in that situation. Because the other thing that happens, and this is happening a lot in our country right now, is when I believe he's an idiot, one of the things that happens is I stop listening to him. Mm-hmm. And I stop trying to talk to him. And so you have, the Democrats and the Republicans and the this and the that, and we got labels and judgments, and we're not going to talk to anybody else about anything. That's not coming from a place of peace and love. Let's look at our judgments about the other, whatever that is for you, and then examine that and question it, and seeing how that's a mirror of your own behavior and thoughts. Can you get in touch with that? Can you clear that up? And then can you enter the conversation with an open, clear mind and a loving heart?
Yeah.
That's what's needed, not another strident voice of judgment. We got enough of those.
Right. Absolutely. I am saying the exact same thing that you are, just in a different way, but I think of it in terms of that high vibrational place that we can get to when we open up our crown chakra. We just live in this high vibration, and it is just peace, love, joy, bliss, ease, and grace. And I got to the point, even with my email, that I had been getting so many emails, and I was feeling low vibrational when I was trying to answer and respond to all of them, that I ended up taking a step back, doing the work, and saying, you know what? It doesn't matter if I answer emails twice a week or 7 times a week, right? Or 14 times a week. People are still going to get the answers that they need. And if they need to, they can text me. So I ended up putting a permanent vacation memo on my email that says, in order to stay in high vibration, I will get back to you twice a week. If you need something really soon, just text me. But you have to do everything from that place of high vibration. Otherwise, it's not authentic to who we truly are.
Correct.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh, I love that, Paul. Well, Paul, would you be willing to come on again? If any of our listeners are working through some deeper suffering in their lives, I'd love to have you on as volunteers to work through a couple of examples with Paul. Would you be interested in that?
Sure. I'd be happy to do that.
Oh, thank you. So if you're interested out there, listeners, if you've got something that you're working through in your life and you want to do the work here on this podcast, we can keep your name anonymous. Just email me or PM me over on social media, and we will get in touch and find a date where we can all work on this together.
Sounds great. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you so much, Paul. Paul, if people want to find you on your website, if they want to work with you, you're here in Chicago, right?
I live in Deerfield, and I do sessions here. I teach some classes at Infinity Foundation in Highland Park. You can find me at my website is ismybusiness.org. You can also find me on Katie's website, thework.com, if you look under facilitators. So either way.
Oh, thank you so much. And we'll put both of those in the show notes for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
Thanks
so much, Paul.
Been a pleasure.
You too.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Friends, I don't ask you to support this podcast with a membership program or with Patreon. What I ask is that if this podcast resonates with you, if having an angel reading is something that you feel called to do, please go online and book an appointment with me. I offer 25 and 55-minute angel message readings. I also offer Reiki energy healing sessions. If that is something that you feel called to do with me, that's actually how I keep this podcast going, is you booking those sessions. So thank you so much for continuing to do that. You can book your reading or your energy healing session on my website, www.jancis.com. That's my last name.com. I've also got the Angel School coming back up in November. If the Angel School is something that you've been interested in doing, in learning how to bring through messages from loved ones and angels on the other side, and learning Reiki energy healing simultaneously at the same time, we do have the November Angel School on November 16th and 17th. That's a Saturday and Sunday. It'll be held at the Hilton Doubletree Hotel in Lisle, Illinois. That's right on the border of Lisle and Naperville, Illinois. And thank you so much for your support of the Angel School. It has gotten such a great response from you that we're actually looking at adding an in-person date in January. There are some people who live very far away in New Zealand, Australia, who would like to take the class remotely because it's just easier for them than flying in. There are other people who really don't mind and they want to fly in. It really is just dependent on the individual, and I respect whatever method you want to take. But in January, we definitely have an online version of the Angel School, and we're thinking about adding an in-person class as well. So if you want to take part in one of those, please let me know so that I can get you registered and on the list to save your spot. Friends, if you could be an angel, please write a 5-star review or just click 5 stars on this podcast. Subscribe to this podcast. But when you do review us, you leave a positive 5-star review, we enter you into a monthly drawing to win a free session with me. We're also going to be giving away 15 more free sessions in November, and we're planning a couple more cool things, but I can't tell you about it yet. It's top secret. It's all offered to those who are in the drawing. So you get entered into the drawing for every time you write a review. You can write one on iTunes, on Google. When you look up my name, Julie Jancis, you can also write one on our Facebook page. You can also be an angel by sharing this podcast with your friends and family. Just spreading the word helps so much. Friends, if you want a daily angel message, make sure that you're following us over on Instagram, Facebook, or our Facebook group. You can find us over there by typing in @AngelPodcast. That's the @Angel Podcast. The group name is Angels and Awakening Podcast Tribe. Over on the group, we post a weekly Facebook video. That is something that is not here on the podcast. It's different content. It's kind of more what's happening in my life as it relates to spirituality and the podcast. Friends, last but not least, if you have an angel story that you'd like to share, we would love to hear it. We are looking for your angel stories for you to either come on the podcast and share your story yourself, or for you to write us your story. If you don't want to read it, we would be happy to read it for you right here on the show. My friends, thank you so much for being here today. I want you to take a moment to just open up your heart. I want you to feel that energy surrounding your heart chakra. I want you to feel it opening and getting lighter. You could even see it as French doors opening within your heart, and you allowing love, peace, bliss, ease, grace, all to flow in to your being. I want you to know, my friends, that every single one of you has angels, guides, and loved ones on the other side who are cheering for you, who are rooting for you, who want nothing more than for you to be loved, for you to succeed, and for you to see your dreams come true here on earth. Are you talking to them? Are you spending time with them? Are you making time within your life to be still, to be quiet, and to listen to what your angels, guides, and loved ones are telling you? They're talking to you all the time. They just talk to us differently. It might not sound like their voice. It sounds like your own internal dialogue. It is your intuition. Your intuition is the tool that they use to communicate with you. So take some time to be silent, to be still, and to listen to the messages that they're trying to bring through to you right now. It's never negative. It's always positive. That's how you know it's them. And don't forget to ask them for help. The more that we ask our spirit team for help, the more that they can do for us. So get up in the morning and ask them to help you throughout your day. You can say that little prayer while you're getting ready for work, while you're getting ready for school. You just incorporate it into your daily routine. My friends, that is how you open up your heart to all of the unexpected blessings that your team is trying to bring into your life right now. Watch out for the signs because they're also bringing you those. Friends, I love you so much. They love you so much. Thank you for sharing your time with me today. I feel so blessed to have you in my life. And I feel so blessed to be a tool that God can work through. Because believe me, friends, none of this is me. It is all spirit. I love you so much. They love you. Have a beautiful, wonderful, fantastic, incredible week. Make it a great week. Until next time, sending you peace, bliss, and many, many blessings.